All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going on this incredible journey, starting from the absolute tiniest instructions that build you and scaling all the way up to the massive, complex systems that keep you going every single day. So let's kick things off with a big question. It really does all start with a secret code, a blueprint that's hidden inside nearly every part of you, and it dictates everything. I mean, from your eye color to how your body fights off a simple cold. So, what exactly is it? To get to the bottom of that, we're going to tackle this in 4 parts. First, we'll look at the blueprint itself. Then we'll learn the language your cells use to talk to each other. After that, we'll see how they're powered and protected. And finally, we'll just marvel at how our bodies actually work. It's going to be a trip, from the microscopic to the magnificent. Okay, first up, the blueprint of life. Before you can understand a massive skyscraper, you have to look at the individual bricks, and of course, the architectural plans. That's where we're starting. And that foundational brick is the cell. It's the smallest possible unit of life, like its own self-contained little universe. Just try to picture it as a tiny bubble, a membrane holding all the essential gear needed for life, including the master plan. And what's just wild is that it doesn't matter if you're a tiny bacterium or a person, your cells share these same core parts. You got a plasma membrane that acts like a bouncer at a club, cytoplasm that's the factory floor inside, the genetic material, our blueprint, and these things called ribosomes, which are the tiny factories that actually build everything. And there it is. Tucked away inside is the master blueprint itself, DNA. This is the code we were just talking about, the full set of instructions for building and running an entire organism. The beautiful thing about this code is its simplicity. It's made of just 4 letters or bases, A, T, C, and G. And they follow one very strict rule, known as Chargaff's rule. A always pairs with T, and G always pairs with C. It's a perfect match. That means if you have, say, 20% guanine in a sample, you know for a fact you also have 20% cytosine. This perfect pairing is what creates that iconic double helix shape we all know. So having a blueprint is great, but it's pretty useless if you don't have workers who can read it and actually build stuff. That's where this 2-step process comes in. First, in what's called transcription, the cell makes a temporary, sort of portable copy of a gene from the DNA. Then, in translation, those little ribosome factories read that copy and follow the instructions to build a specific protein, the little machines that do pretty much all the work in our bodies. Okay, so we've got the blueprint and we've got the workers. Now, let's zoom out a little. How do trillions of these individual cells all work together as a team? Well, they talk to each other, using a surprisingly sophisticated language. This chart basically lays out the 4 main dialects of that language. Autocrine signaling, that's a cell talking to itself, kind of like leaving a sticky note for itself. Paracrine is more like whispering to your immediate neighbors. Juxtacrine is a direct handshake. The cells have to be physically touching. And then there's endocrine, which is the long-distance call. It's like shouting a message across the entire body using the bloodstream as a highway. The perfect example is insulin, which tells cells everywhere to start grabbing sugar. And what's absolutely incredible is that we've figured out how to listen in and even copy parts of this genetic language. The most famous tool for this is PCR, which is basically a molecular photocopier for DNA. It works in this really clever 3-step cycle. First, you crank up the heat to pop the 2 DNA strands apart. Then, you cool it down just enough so these tiny guide molecules called primers can lock on to the exact spot you want to copy. Finally, a special enzyme comes in and just zips along, building the copies. You just repeat that cycle, say, 30 times, and you've got over 1 billion copies from one single starting piece. It's a technology that powers everything from forensics to disease testing. Just amazing. All right, Section 3, powering and protecting life. Now that we've got trillions of these cells all talking to each other, how do we get energy to all of them? And how do we keep them safe from invaders? Well, it turns out every single one of your cells has its own personal power plant, located in the mitochondria. And the heart of that power plant is a process called the electron transport chain. Its whole job is to turn the food you eat into ATP, which is the universal energy currency for all of life. So how's it work? The best analogy is a hydroelectric dam. Molecules from your food deliver these high-energy electrons, which could pass down a line of proteins like a bucket brigade. As they move, they power these pumps that shove protons across a membrane, building up a ton of pressure, just like water behind a dam.
Then, when those protons rush back through a special turbine called ATP synthase, that powerful flow is harnessed to crank out massive amounts of ATP energy. So that's power. What about protection? Well, your body has this awesome two-tiered security system. First, you've got the innate immune system. Think of them as the first responders. They're fast, they're general purpose, and they're always on patrol. But then you have the adaptive system. These are the elite special forces. They're a bit slower to get going, but they develop these highly specific weapons for every single threat. And, this is the crucial part, they remember them for life.
And that memory is the absolute game changer. This quote here nails it. That memory is the whole reason you usually only get something like chickenpox once. And it's the exact principle that makes vaccines so powerful. They create the memory without you having to get sick, getting your special forces ready for the real battle ahead.
And that brings us to our final section, our body's inner workings. Let's do one last big zoom out all the way to the macro level and just look at how these specialized communities of cells, our organs, pull off tasks that are, frankly, miraculous. Get this. Take your small intestine. Its whole job is to absorb nutrients. Now, to be as efficient as possible, it's not just a smooth tube. It's covered in folds. And those folds have smaller folds called villi. And those are covered in even smaller, microscopic folds called microvilli. When you add it all up, it increases the surface area by a staggering 600 times. Or think about this puzzle, your kidneys. How is it possible that the same organ can produce urine that's almost pure water when you've had a lot to drink, but also make it incredibly concentrated when you're dehydrated? The answer is this absolutely brilliant piece of biological engineering called the countercurrent multiplier. As fluid goes down this long loop in the kidney, water gets pulled out, but on the way back up, salt is actively pumped out. This creates this intensely salty environment deep inside the kidney. The final tube, the collecting duct, then passes through this salty zone. And depending on what your body needs, it can either hold on to its water and make dilute urine, or it can let that salty gradient pull a ton of water out, making it super concentrated. It's just a masterpiece of fine-tuning. And just like that, we've come full circle. We started with a simple 4-letter DNA code, and we built our way up through proteins and communicating cells and power systems all the way to an organ that can perfectly tune your body's water balance. You see? Every single level is built right on top of the one before it. It's all connected. We've literally traced the path from a single molecule all the way to a complete thinking, breathing organism. It's really a testament to billions of years of evolution. And it just leaves you with this one final, exciting thought. What's the next huge mystery that biology is just waiting for us to unravel?